Hello and welcome to week 1 of Education 435 Math for Elementary Education, also your Math Methods course, same thing. So I want to take some time to go through our syllabus to see what our learning outcomes are and also your week 1 content so that we're able to hopefully address any issues or questions that you may have, and you'll be in a good place for week 1. So if you navigate to the syllabus and click on that, it'll take you to our syllabus where I've already scrolled down to our week 1. So the weekly bullet point learning outcomes are specific to that week, and then they connect to your course outcomes, which are listed above that. So this week we're going to define and develop understandings of the standards of mathematical practice, research best practice of Hattie's visible learning for math specifically, create interactive notebooks and field experience journals, identify pacing and math topics by your North Carolina Standard Course of Study, and reflect on current math instruction that is happening in classrooms. We will do those things through discussion boards, your interactive notebook, looking into and digging into your North Carolina Standard Course of Study, your standards of mathematical practice, your GCLM, Chapter 2, which is your Guiding Children's Learning of Mathematics, and then Hattie, the Preface, and Chapter 1, which that has been provided to you. So if we go back into your weekly content, everything will be available to you in this Week 1 folder. There's quite a bit in Week 1. So here is an intro video that is just specific to the course. It does not have anything to do with Week 1 in particular. We have your discussion board here. And then we have all the other things that you're going to need for this week in your tasks that you're going to be working on. So let's first talk about discussion boards. So this first week, it's just very simple, kind of get to know you information. I've provided an example down here. So you'll just click on this link right here to navigate into the discussion board and start your post. So please make sure that you are submitting your own initial post to or thread in the discussion board forum, and then you're going to reply to 2 colleagues' posts. So this says be sure to cite evidence from the text for full credit. Not necessarily the case for this week 1, so don't worry about that. But typically from here on out, as we're working through the chapters and the reading, you will cite evidence from those readings in your post for discussion boards. So you're going to take a little bit of time and tell us about yourself. 3 facts about you, 2 family facts, and 1 thing that is surprising, and that's kind of some personal background information. And so for me, I am new to North Carolina, moved 2 years ago, and actually am going to be moving back to St. Louis. So I haven't been here long and moving back, but that's okay. I'm obsessed with yoga, and I could live in the kitchen and cook and bake all day. And so, of course, if someone would clean my dishes, I'd appreciate that. Professionally, 3 math experiences, positive, negative, or both, 2 questions about this course or math, and 1 thing I'm looking forward to. So my first math teaching experience was as a 1st grade teacher, and my favorite math high school was my math high school teacher for trigonometry, which is interesting because most people may not love trigonometry, but I loved it because his focus was on the learning process and not just right-wrong answers, which was very powerful for me because I had not had that in a math class before. And then helping my children with math in school has opened my eyes to a parent's perspective. So I have 5 children, and helping them with their schoolwork has really provided a different lens on math instruction in schools. 2 questions: how are we supporting students to learn math in fun and engaging ways? And how can I best support you in this course? And then, of course, 1 thing I'm looking forward to, learning from everyone about what's happening in classrooms. I love being in classrooms and seeing what's happening, and so I love hearing from you on what is happening. So your discussion board is going to kind of be your first item that you tackle, and then everything else falls into your interactive notebook. So I do have some links here that will take you to the North Carolina Standard Course of Study for math. And so this is currently the most recent list of your learning outcomes per grade level for math. And so they divide them up per grade level. My understanding is that there are some revisions coming down the pike, but as for right now, it is this set of Standard Course of Study standards. And then we have our standards of mathematical practice. And so you have your standard course of study, and those are the learning targets that you want your students to be able to know and be able to do as they progress through your classroom. Then you have your standards for mathematical practice. And so these are the things that your students should be doing and the ways that they should be learning and how they should be applying math content in your classroom. And so these are kind of partner with the standards that you're teaching to, the standard course of study. And they are really kind of strategies and things that you should be integrating into your instruction. And so there are 8 standards of mathematical practice, and so they are listed here. So make sense of problems and persevere in solving them, reason abstractly and quantitatively, construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others, model with mathematics, use appropriate tools strategically, attend to precision, look for and make use of structure, and look for and express regularity and repeated reasoning. So this is a little bit of information and some more detail about those 8 standards of mathematical practice. So those will come into play in your interactive notebook and in other things as we move throughout the semester. So the other piece is going to be Hattie's Visible Learning for Mathematics Preface. So this is a piece of this textbook that I told you I was not necessarily going to ask you to buy. I would encourage you to get it at some point as you go into the classroom. But I do have the preface here for you, and then I also have chapter 1 here for you. And it's just kind of a general overview of visible learning, what it is, what it means, and visible learning in math specifically. So then the other thing that we have is your interactive notebook, your INB, and your field experience journal. It's kind of all the same thing. It's all going to compile into this one digital notebook. And so as you can see here, there are some directions. So before making a copy, make sure that you've watched this video for directions. So hopefully you're doing that in the right order. Remember that you are going to make a copy. You're not going to edit the file that this links you to, and you need to send it to this email address. So let's go ahead and navigate into this. And the first thing you're going to need to do is make a copy so that you don't begin editing this original. So you're going to come over here to File, Make a Copy, and it's going to pop up with this box. So you can rename it anything you'd like to rename it. Just make sure that your name is somewhere in the title so that I know who the INB belongs to. And then you are going to choose what folder you want this to be in. Now that's going to be in your Google Drive, whatever folder you choose. And then you're going to say, okay. I'm not going to because I don't need a copy. And then you also have to make sure that you share it. So in order to share it with me, you're going to click, there's a blue button up here that says share. Right now it's just my video. Or you can come over here to File and Share. You can choose if you want me to be able to edit, to comment, or view. I am not going to change anything that you put into it. I will be adding comments and feedback and input, but I'm not going to change what you're putting in it. So whatever you want me, however you want me to have access is fine, doesn't matter. But then you're going to make sure that you put in that email address, dremilyaturner@gmail.com, and then you're going to hit send and share it with me. So in doing that, you are going to share that with me. I will save it in my Google Drive, and then instead of having to upload something every week for your interactive notebook, I will be able to see any updates and changes that you have put into it. So you won't have to resubmit anything. You will just be able to send it to me as it is. So as we are looking at our, let me go back to our rubric. I'm sorry, our syllabus. So we've talked about our discussion board and our interactive notebook. So the standard course of study, the standards of mathematical practice, GCLM 2, and Hattie Preface and Hattie Chapter 1 are all going to be a part of what you're doing in your interactive notebook. So as we navigate back to our interactive notebook, if you scroll down to week 1, you're going to see those items that I just shared with you here in your table of contents. So as you build in your information, you're going to need to update what page these are on so that it functions as a table of contents to where I know what page your information is on. The pages are already in here, so you'll just have to look and see. It automatically adds as you add pages. And here is week 1. Okay, so I have given you the prompt for what I'm going to ask you to do. So I want you to copy and paste your grade level pacing guide for the remainder of the second semester. So we're just about finished with school. Most of you guys are in EOCs, EOGs, or you may be finished with classes at Maryville or at Campbell, but you are ready. You may have access to a grade level pacing guide. If you don't, I want you to try and be able to find a pacing guide for Harnett County, Wake County, Johnson County, Cumberland County, Sampson County. Go on their websites and their curriculum. If you look in their district part of the website, the main website, and you go to departments or curriculum instruction, you may be able to find something. So I'm curious to see pacing guides for the remainder of the second semester. So copy and paste whatever it is for the last part of school in here in this part. Literally just copying and pasting. Your North Carolina Standard Course of Study. So when you find that pacing guide, I want you to then pull from that. What are the standards that those teachers are teaching in the last part of the school year? And I want you to identify those, copy and paste those here so that we know we're supposed to be teaching this for the end of the year. These are the standards that our students should be meeting during this window of time. Standards of mathematical practice. So I showed you in your week 1 links where the hyperlink was to the document that explained the standards of mathematical practice. So you're going to just identify those 8 standards and define them in your own words and provide an example. So that's not something you have to go out and find. You're just going to go back to that link, navigate to that, create your bullet point list, identify those in your own words, and provide an example. Then as you're reading through your Guiding Children's Learning in Mathematics, Chapter 2, I want you to identify the domains within the Common Core State Standards, which are also your standard course of study. So you have your grade level content standards, which are your North Carolina Standard Course of Study. And then within that, you have domains that you are kind of like your big ideas of what you're going to be teaching kids in your elementary math class. And so I want you to identify those domains. Now, not all grade levels touch all domains. So kindergartners are not necessarily going to touch probability and statistics that are in the upper grades. And 6th grade, 5th grade is probably not going to be touching counting and cardinality, which is a primary skill. But I do want to know what are all of those domains between all of those levels. And so just identify those. You can just list them out, bullet point them out. When you're reading the preface for Visible Learning in Math, I want you to find an image of the barometer of influence and explain to me based on those the preface, what is the barometer of influence and how does it work? So this is a critical piece to helping us down the road figuring out how we want to teach it, what strategies we want to use, and some further research for Hattie. And so I want you to at least be aware that this barometer of influence is there, it exists, and what its purpose is and how it helps us in math instruction. Then in Chapter 1 for Hattie, again in the Visible Learning text, I want you to take some time to figure out what is he talking about with regard to surface learning, deep learning, and transfer learning, and how does an effective teacher balance all three, and why is that important? Why do we need to make sure that we are aware of the level of learning, the depth of learning that is happening in our classrooms and math in particular? So I want you, once you have read those 2 excerpts from the Visible Learning, I want you to be able to walk away knowing what the barometer of influence is, knowing what it's about and what purpose it serves. I also want you to be able to know and understand the different levels of learning, surface, deep, and transfer. So I want you to be able to understand that because it's important to know what's happening in classrooms and are we hitting those levels? Are we getting to a transfer learning level with our instruction? So this week is just kind of gathering our resources, getting familiar with what is going on in elementary math and what's relevant in math instruction in classrooms. So as we gather these resources, they'll be more applicable to things that we're going to do throughout the semester. So if you have any questions, please refer to your syllabus. Always send me an email. Never hesitate to ask questions, ask each other in the class, and I will see you in week 2. Thank you.